reason Shinju was such a likable character despite being an objectively terrible, self-sabotaging person is that he's had a lot of very realistic, relatable, traumatic experiences that he reacts to in very realistic, relatable ways, which doesn't excuse any of his actions but does make him very easy to sympathize with. He hates men because he was sexually abused by them when he was younger, so the only people he could find comfort in was women. Which is why when he was a disciple, he spent all of his nights in brothels, not because he had lecherous perversions, but because he couldn't relax enough in a room full of men in order to fall asleep because all the male disciples slept in dorms together. He refuses to speak up for himself or plead his case even though that's in his best interest because he was betrayed by the one person he's ever trusted, so now he thinks nobody's ever on his side, there's no point in trying. He continues the cycle of abuse with Bingha because he doesn't see his actions as being abuse. For him, the sexual abuse was probably the worst part because it left the biggest lasting impact on him, but Bingha didn't even have to go through all that, so what does he have to complain about? He takes his anger out on the world, on everyone around him, because that's what the world was like to him when he was younger. It doesn't matter that all his victims are just innocent kids, because he was an innocent kid back then too. Every single thing he does has a reason behind it. He's not evil for the sake of being evil. He's evil because that's what the world demanded of him to survive. And now that he's an adult, he doesn't have it in him to forgive, so the only way for him to move on is to take his anger out on the world.
sorry I let you down, Mom.
Oh, there's nothing to be sorry about, Garfield. Not all of us are cut out to be mousers.
I'll say.
Garfield, this is really for the best. You wouldn't survive here. You have a good life, an easy life. We all envy you.
I'll miss you.
I'll always be with you, Garfield. And if you ever need me, I'll be there. Now, go, dear. It's starting to get dark. Garfield, I love you.
I love you too, Mom.
Well, I
Why did Shinju hate Bingha specifically? Shinju admits that he's just a bitter, envious man, and Bingha had everything he wanted for himself but never had. Bingha had a mother to love him, he stood out because he was talented, and he started at the perfect age to learn cultivation, which led a very jealous Shinju to abuse and sabotage Bingha. Or at least that's what the story and Shinju himself leads you to believe, but it's a lot more complicated than that. Second thing we have to address is Shinju's hatred of men. All men, including teenage boys and little kids like Bingha was at the time. Also most likely himself, which is why he often paints this picture of himself being born evil, even though his actions and his personality are so clearly affected by his trauma. The last and probably the most important reason is Bingha's resemblance to Chu Jianluo, Shinju's main abuser. He was the rich kid that bought him off the streets, and he also had a weird infatuation with him, which is why he betrothed him to his younger sister Chu Haitang so that neither of them would ever have to leave him. This is where Shenju's fear of men and love of women comes from. Hu Jianluo absolutely adored his younger sister and he never acted out in front of her, so Shenju could always go to her for comfort and safety. Unfortunately for Binghan, Ying Ying's attachment to him very closely resembled that of Chu Haitang and her brother. Every time Shenju saw that, he felt more and more justified in his abuse of this little kid.